I finally got my hands on one. The lens that everybody and their mother's been telling me about. The Canon 50mm. But is it any good for making YouTube videos? Stay with me and find out. What is going on? I'm the one they call Schmojo14, and if you're new here, I'd like to say what's up to you. So the moment that some of my subscribers and friends heard that I was shooting video with a Canon T2i, they were all like, hey bro, you know what you need in your life? The Canon 50mm lens. Yeah, the nifty 50. Have you heard of it? And I was like, no, I haven't heard of it, fellow human. Inform me. So I started asking around to friends and family to see if any of them had this fabled unicorn of a lens. Turns out my coworker had the lens himself, and he was actually willing to let me use the thing. That made this video a lot easier to shoot. What I have here is Canon's fabled nifty 50 lens. The lens that shows up in pretty much every beginner tutorial or you gotta have this in your camera bag type video online. This one I have here is the Canon lens EF 50mm 1.4 USM. Now this lens is considered a prime lens. What does that mean to us? It's a lens that has a fixed focal length and no adjustable zoom. So instead of being able to point at your subject and actually zoom in on the photo itself, you gotta physically move the camera in or out to get the shot that you want. Okay, so you heard me ramble off a bunch of random letters and numbers when I was reading off the lens cap of this thing. I know that I look like a world-renowned cinematographer, and truly, I'm flattered. But I'm not an expert in lens specifications or cameras themselves. I'm just some dude trying to make sense of it all and learning as I go. And I'm trying to teach you guys that are at the same skill level as myself. If you guys are looking for more advanced techniques and an absolute beast in photography, I want you guys to go over and check out Peter McKinnon. He mops the floor with me as far as camera knowledge goes. I'm gonna go ahead and link his channel up in the card up top. Are people still watching? Yeah? Okay, let's keep this gravy train rolling then. So the first part of this entire thing is the Canon EF portion. Canon itself, well, that should be pretty explanatory. But the EF portion is what we're worried about. EF means electrofocus. What that means to us is the autofocus capabilities of the lens is handled by a motor that's built into it internally. This one's fit with an EF type mount that's gonna fit into any Canon body that has an EF type mounting body. The motor in this particular lens is where the USM portion on the end of it actually comes in. What that means is ultrasonic motor. Basically, all that means for me and you is that that motor is going to be quieter than motors in a cheaper lens when you're autofocusing and using that function. Next up, we have the 50mm designation, which is the distance from the lens itself to the internal portion of the camera. What you need to know about that is the higher the number, the more zoomed in your image is going to be. Obviously, a lower number is going to mean it's more zoomed out if the camera is in the same position. If it has an adjustable focal length like the 18 to 55mm kit lens, that means you can actually use the control ring and zoom in and out physically with the lens itself, making the image closer or farther away. Alright, now the big kicker, the f-stop. This lens's claim to fame is a 1.4 f-stop. What is an f-stop though? It's actually a numerical representation that's given to us on screen to know how far the aperture is open. Now the next portion of that is, what's an aperture? Aperture is basically a hole in the lens that allows light to pass through onto the camera's sensor in the body. To understand aperture further, you're going to need to understand about aperture blades. They're basically small metal segments inside the lens itself. The camera body controls those. The more open they are, the more light that passes through. The more closed, the less light that passes through. Adjusting the f-stop to its lowest setting is going to give you the brightest image possible. It's going to open that aperture up real wide and allow as much light as possible through the lens onto the camera's sensor. Alternatively though, doing this is going to reduce the camera's field of depth. You know those pictures you see where the background's real blurry all around, but the subject itself is really in focus? That's where the f-stop comes in. You raise that number up, you're going to increase the field of depth, which is going to give you less blur in the background. Now that we have a grasp of actually what's going on here, I'd like to get this lens mounted on the camera to see what my YouTube videos would be looking like. Good old movie magic. Alright, so we got the camera about 6 feet away now. We actually had to move the thing back about 2 feet to get it framed up properly. Everything else is the same, except for on a 1.4 aperture now. We took the ISO down from 800 to 200 to actually get the exposure levels correct. Everything else is the same. So this is the type of video you're going to be getting if you're shooting talking head type videos. Now, you may also be wondering, does it do B-roll? Yeah, she do B-roll. This lens has been proven to be a great lens from videographers and photographers from all walks of life. You guys can get a hold of it for around the $260 mark. Now, there's another brand called Yongnuo, and they actually make a 50mm lens that mounts to the Canons for around the $45 mark. It has an f-stop of 1.8 though. Let me know if you guys would like me to review that lens and take it out for a spin. I can see if I can get my hands on one. If you guys like this one, go ahead and leave me a like. If you guys have suggestions or if I missed something, let me know down in the comments section below. As always, don't forget to subscribe. I'd like to say thanks for hanging out with me.